welcome back subscribers and welcome new viewers. I'm going to be reading from this Chiron book, Chiron in aspect to Neptune. And this is natal Chiron, natal Neptune, and specifically opposition, square, or conjunct on your natal wheel. And I want to thank Renee for this viewer request, and thank each and every one of you who have subscribed, like, and share my videos. There, I got it out. Because that helps my whole channel to circulate to more and more viewers just like you who need this information. Okay, so thank you, each and every one of you. All right, let's get to it. Okay. Again, Chiron in aspect to Neptune. And if any of you would like a written copy, I just need your email address, so you can either leave it down in the comments section below, or you can send me an email. All of my information is in the drop-down box below this video and each and every video. Okay. People with Chiron and Neptune in aspect often have remarkable access to the world of dreams, imagination, and fantasy. They may never have lost this childlike connection that for many of us does not survive education, growing up in the demands of life in the material world. These realms are experienced as utterly real, perhaps more so than solid external reality, and therein lies the wound of Chiron, Neptune, the gift and the liability of a natural sense of the unified reality from which the world of form derives and to which it eventually returns. Here, what we think or feel or want is as real and tangible as anything else, and may personify itself in dramatic form in our imagination. It could be difficult for us when worldly reality intervenes and shows us that our imagination is not magically omnipotent, does not necessarily correspond with what is out there, and that our longings will not necessarily be fulfilled just because we feel them strongly. With Chiron-Neptune contacts, limits, exclusiveness, or boundaries that prevent this merging could make us feel victimized or become angry, depressed, and confused. Conflict is particularly threatening and wounding as it highlights the reality of separateness, and we may find it difficult to stand up for ourselves and our personal needs. A common Chiron-Neptune response to interpersonal conflict is tearful collapse and feelings of being unable to cope. Those with Chiron-Neptune aspects often idealize or depreciate themselves and or others, employing the hysterical defense of playing victim and poor me if they sense imminent confrontation. They may assert themselves by well-timed displays of emotion, vulnerability, or physical weakness. They are not above playing mad in order to avoid uncomfortable situations. Conversely, they are sometimes easily deceived and tend to be easy prey for people intent on deceiving or exploiting them. They may not see danger until it is too late. And I just want to say, this is something that you were born with, this energy. So you were going to and are going to go through these experiences, these Chironic experiences, Chiron Neptune experiences, so that you can heal this wound. The dissolving of the illusion of duality is often a feature of the Chiron Neptune experience. But to allow our individual life to melt into chaos is to literalize this. We might periodically experience floods of emotion and feel our solidity is being washed away. We then feel stripped of our hard-won sense of individual identity and ability to cope in the world. Before we have reconnected with the inner sense that all is one, our desire for unity may express itself in bouts of drinking, in confusion, self-destructiveness, lack of responsibility in worldly affairs, and other classic Neptunian difficulties. Chiron Neptune urges conscious recognition of this desire, for we cannot embody these energies in an appropriate way if we are unconscious of what their compulsions represent. We will probably instead be taken captive by them and swept away. Okay, I'm just being called to say also that for some of you listening to this, you might also have your nodes of the moon conjunct, opposing, or squaring Chiron, or even Chiron Neptune for some of you. And if this is the case, then I highly recommend I'm going to do the next reading, which I should be putting them both out today. Today is the 2nd, February the 17th, 2022. And the title for the next video is going to be Chiron in opposition, square, or conjunct the nodes of the moon. So again, I highly, if you have your nodes square, opposing, or conjunct, listening to that video as well. Okay. Discrimination between fact and fantasy often takes a long time to develop, and our spiritual longings are usually contaminated with a regressive desire to return to an undifferentiated state of bliss and avoid adult responsibilities. Chiron-Neptune contexts, however, do bring the pressure to embody Neptune in our life. Some with this aspect may find themselves drawn to fields where the imagination is important, such as the world of film, television, or theater. Others will draw upon the world of inner images for their painting or writing. Yet others will work in the Chironian fields of healing and teaching. One way or another, Chiron Neptune demands a suitable form through which it can either be expressed or at least held in our hearts as an inner truth which infuses and sanctifies our daily life, rather than allowing ourselves to be dragged into an imaginary never land where we languish, drained of vitality. People with Chiron Neptune aspects absorb moods and feelings from the environment without realizing it, and will quickly become tearful in the presence of anyone holding in their own sadness. That is very important. I'm going to read that sentence again. That is very important. People with Chiron Neptune aspects absorb moods and feelings from the environment without realizing it, and will quickly become tearful in the presence of anyone holding in their own sadness. This can extend further into the realm of collective emotion. Okay, that's big. That's very big. As a striking example of this, a woman with Chiron in Pisces, Trine Neptune in Scorpio, found herself crying inexplicably for hours, having images of chaos, graves, and people screaming and dying. I just have to say, that is exactly me. My Chiron is in Pisces, and it does trine my Neptune in Scorpio. Wow. Plus, besides being I have a Pisces sun, besides other major like Saturn and Mars are both in Pisces. They're all conjunct in my 12th house, by the way. Okay. When later she turned on her television, she discovered that while she was experiencing this, a bomb had been detonated in Northern Ireland at a Remembrance Day service, killing and wounding many people. Wow. Immediately she saw this. Her mood changed and she was able to let go of the experience. Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. When you are able to become aware of that and where that came from, then it just leaves. It leaves you instantly. I know this experientially. So, and if you can't, well, then that's another situation, isn't it? It becomes more and more essential for each one of us like this to be able to know and be consciously aware at all times of our own, and to actually being taking care of our own subconscious, what we were given subconsciously at birth, our south node, our north and south nodes of the moon, dealing with that and bringing that out into the open awareness, so then you know, and once you've taken care of that, completely worked through that south node of the moon, then you will have a clear, absolutely clear view of yourself and what your emotions are on a moment-to-moment basis, as opposed to what you are feeling externally, whether it's in the world or with a person that's right in front of you, that you're conversing with or not. It will become more and more clarity, and you'll be able to distinctly know right away. Okay. Some painful personal feelings that she was trying to stave off had become contaminated with this flood of collective feeling, had escalated and overtaken her. It was only when she shed the identification with collective suffering that she found her own personal feelings underneath. However, with Chiron and Neptune in aspect, we may in time be able to express what is unspoken and not yet felt by others in a creative way, without suffering ego disintegration in the process. Thus, we can help others regain their sense of connection with themselves and with life as a whole, serving the principle of Neptune in an individualized way. And see, for me personally, my South Node conjuncts my South Node in Scorpio conjuncts my Scorpio Neptune. So there you go. That's why I'm speaking about, and I know this experientially, those of you that also are connected. And even if you're not, if you have this, and you're obviously going to be listening and viewing this video if you have this aspect, Chiron Neptune aspect. So now I'm seeing why I mentioned your nodes of the moon. So each and every one of you who are listening and viewing this, who have this aspect and don't know your nodes of the moon, or you haven't brought that out into your open awareness, conscious awareness yet, to know specifically what they are, I cannot tell you enough and encourage you enough to do that. Find it out. And again, I have many past videos of the nodes of the moon in the house placement and the zodiac signs. So check those out if you already know your natal placement and you know you've seen the nodes of the moon, you just haven't checked that out. Or maybe some of you don't know what the symbol of the nodes of the moon are. Upright headphones, north node. Upside down headphones, south node. They'll be directly across from each other. And again, you're going to have a zodiac sign placement and a house placement. Okay. And any of you who don't know your, if you don't, you should have your natal wheel, I would think, possibly, maybe you don't know the house placement sign. So if you haven't done your natal wheel and you want it done, send me a comment, send me an email. Okay. Okay, so thus we can help. I'm going to move forward. With Chiron in aspect to Neptune, we might try and deal with this sensitivity by isolating ourselves. Although periods of such isolation are healing and refreshing, if we remain unconscious of why we need it, we could sink into feelings of powerlessness and identification with the outsider, the scapegoat, or the victim, retreating into a world of fantasy and refusing to engage with life. I'm going to read that sentence again. That is so imperative. And again, this would have everything to do with your nodes of the moon and knowing consciously what they are so you don't slink into this. Okay. And it's okay if you are in this right now or if you have in the past done this, because again, this is Chiron Neptune also, and your nodes. And so you will do a certain amount of this. I definitely did. I absolutely did. So don't you feel bad, please. None of you, ever, ever, ever. With Chiron in aspect to Neptune, we might try and deal with this sensitivity by isolating ourselves. Although periods of such isolation are healing and refreshing, if we remain unconscious of why we need it, we could sink into feelings of powerlessness and identification with the outsider, the scapegoat, or the victim, retreating into a world of fantasy and refusing to engage with life. In this fantasy world, we perhaps see ourselves as healers and redeemers and fear of our imagined power increases our impotence in daily life. Alternatively, we could retreat into ironclad defenses and vigorously fend off anything which threatens to dissolve or control, to dissolve our control over our lives. We may become cynical and emotionally impoverished, or skeptical and hostile towards anything mystical or intangible. Okay, I'm going to skip forward because I have a lot to read, and I don't want this to be cut off. So I'm going to stick to generalities. Again, if any of you want this written copy, send me an email, send me a comment. Often, however, Chiron Neptune people are irresistibly drawn to the occult, to experimentation with drugs, and to techniques of consciousness expansion which involve ecstasy and loss of boundaries. While these experiences are natural to and characteristic of the Chiron Neptune path, they are fraught with danger and may further weaken an already fluid ego structure. While people with Chiron Neptune aspects might believe they use drugs for sacramental or self-exploratory reasons, there is usually also an element of escapism and desire permanently to inhabit these realms in order to avoid suffering the separateness affirmed by our senses. Okay, so I'm going to go fast forward here. Okay, Chiron Neptune people often have a strong, charismatic presence, an aura of loving acceptance which attracts people who are suffering, in pain, or in need. However, this can degenerate into a situation of power over, mutual delusion, psychic vampirism, and exploitation, where one person plays savior and the other becomes the one who eternally suffers and is in need of redeeming. The urge to redeem, to pour ourselves forth in sympathy, to heal and give comfort, may have to be contained and resisted if we are to honor the deeper needs of others and ourselves. However, once our regressive and misplaced sacrificial tendencies have been confronted and we have embraced our own pain, Chiron Neptune contacts may mean the capacity for deep compassion, unconditional love, and profound acceptance of ourselves and others as they truly are, faults and all. Perhaps this Neptunian feeling quality is indeed essential to the process of dissolution and change, for without it, transformation is merely another futile struggle to live up to impossible dreams of ourselves, which deepen our wounds and prevent healing from taking place. Neptune can be, what is that word? Neptune can be envisaged as the one within, throughout and containing the many. Like all Neptunians, individuals with Chiron Neptune seek oneness, needing to find some unified spiritual context behind the duality of life in the world. The Chiron Neptune sense of unity is an emotional sense rather than an intellectual precept or philosophy. It is inclusive and thus seeks not to rise above material life with disdain, but ultimately to embrace it with loving acceptance. Unlike the Uranian vision, it is not concerned with individual potential or complex and inspiring systems of cosmic order. It is rather an oceanic feeling of participating in the unfolding cosmos, or of being engulfed in the primordial sea of being. Okay, let me go forward here. It's talking about specifics, about Martin Luther King. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess I will. Let me see what time it is. It's 26. So I will go ahead and read this because this is Martin Luther King and this is specific about him. So maybe some of you have this since I do have some time. Let me see here. Let me make sure just a second here. Okay, I've already read that. Martin Luther King has Chiron, Trine, Neptune in Virgo. And this inspired statement, okay, which I will read in a moment, encapsulates the challenge of Chiron and Neptune to find a way of being that honors both the reality of the oneness that lies behind the different forms of life and also the requirement for the personal boundaries and limits necessary for human life in the world. Okay, and here is his statement. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. And again, that was from Martin Luther King. Okay. For being what I ought to be also involves caring for myself as an individual, as I am not separate from the rest of humanity. Ignoring my individual needs could be a misplaced sacrifice, as described previously in chapter 5 and also in the section on Chiron in Pisces and the 12th house. The Chiron configuration in Martin Luther King's horoscope is as follows. Chiron is in the first house in Taurus, conjunct Jupiter and the ascendant in Taurus, square Mercury in Aquarius in the 10th, trine Neptune in Virgo in the 5th house. It is a semi-square both Moon in Pisces in the 11th house and Mars in Gemini in the 2nd house. The Sabian symbol for this Chiron degree is especially interesting. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. That's that's a lot of detail, and I know most of you, some of you might have some of that, but I know that's hard to take in, especially if you're not already advanced in astrology in general. So I'm going to stop there, and I hope this is helpful for each and every one of you. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear your comments. Feel free to send me an email. Again, all of my information, my email address is in the drop-down box below this video and each and every one of my videos. Okay, so until next time, bye.